Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. I'm your host, Bob Powell, and today we're going on the road because I'm going to be giving a briefing to various elected officials and members of the law enforcement community somewhere in northern Michigan. And in order to protect their identities, they're going to remain nameless. Now, the purpose of this briefing is to let them know what I feel is happening. And I've given them a Cliff Notes version of what I'm going to talk to them about, and they seem to be pretty eager to see what I have to say. So what I'll do is when I get there, I'll just set up the camera and give it a go lecture style and see what they have to say. So sit back, grab your popcorn, and enjoy this. Okay, this is true. All that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And I'm counting on you guys being good men. Now, I've been two things in my life. I've been a journalist and I've been a United States Marine. And the Marine Corps taught me the meaning of honor and honesty, and those are traits that have served me well throughout my life, especially when it comes to reporting the news on my little show. Now, some of you are not going to believe the things that I'm going to tell you in the next 20 minutes, but I assure you that every word is true. I do not get my information from blogs or from anonymous sources. What I'm going to tell you comes firsthand from guests that I've had on my show in the past. Firsthand information from CIA experts, trainers and spies, government officials, both foreign and domestic, mainstream media news from all over the world, and even official documents stored in the archives of the government of the United States. Every bit of evidence that I'm about to present would be admissible in a court of law. My sources include Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who served on the Commission for the Strategic Posture of the United States, which was established by the United States Congress and he was the director of the United States Nuclear Strategy Forum, an advisory body to Congress on policies to counter weapons of mass destruction, and he established the Commission to assess the threat to the United States from electromagnetic pulse attack. Dr. Pry also played a key role running hearings in Congress that warned how terrorists in rogue states could pose an EMP threat, establishing the Congressional EMP Commission, helping the Commission develop plans to protect the United States from an EMP attack. Claire Lopez has had over 30 years of experience in government, the intelligence community, and the private sector, and has worked extensively in human intelligence analysis, counterintelligence, and red cell wargaming and intelligence operations for the CIA. Finally, there's my friend Reza Khalili. He served in the CIA's Directorate of Operations as a spy for the in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. He's a counterterrorism expert, and he's currently on the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, an advisory board authorized by Congress, as well as the Congressional EMP Commission with Lopez and Pry. Now, these are not conspiracy theorists or nut jobs wearing tinfoil hats. These are serious people, and they've got serious concerns about the safety of the United States and the citizens in it. And they've been entrusted by Congress to develop a means of defense against this threat. Unfortunately, nobody seems to be taking this threat seriously. Well, I'm here to change that, at least on a local level. Okay, now I'm here today to warn you that the danger is coming. And it's not just a secular nature. If you guys are Christians, and I believe you are, you have to believe that at some point the prophecies in the Bible are going to come true. We're told that the generation that saw the rebirth of the state of Israel will not pass away before Christ returns. And I had to work this out on my fingers earlier, but if you were born in 1948, you're 64 years old now. So, yeah, we are not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, and against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now, I don't care if you think that Barack Obama is a communist plant. I don't care if you think that he's a Muslim plant, because I'm here to tell you he's not only both, but he's a satanic plant as well. Now, this threat is going to change the way that we live in dramatic and deadly fashion. And these are events that are going to affect every single person in this county. Once I walk out of this room, the safety of the citizens of this county, your friends, your neighbors, and your family are going to be in your hands. And I pray to God that this warning will not go unheeded. We need to prepare this little paradise of ours for the end of the world as we know it. On July 4th, 1776, the founders established the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America on the principles that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. On September 30th of 2011, the Republic fell, and very few people noticed. I marked that date as the fall of the Republic because it was on that date, for the first time in the history of the United States, two citizens of the government were murdered, or two citizens of the United States were murdered by the federal government. Al-Awlaki, Anwar al-Awlaki, and Samir Khan, both born in New Mexico and North Carolina respectively, were killed in a CIA drone strike authorized by President Obama. 2 weeks later, for apparently no reason whatsoever, Obama also ordered the death of Anwar al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman. And he was born in Denver. He was murdered as he sat by a campfire with several other teenagers. The Obama administration has no reason for his killing. Now, I know that a couple of you are thinking, so what? A Muslim terrorist got whacked. Well, you're probably right. He probably had it coming. Now, al-Awlaki was not a nice man. And it makes me sick to have to stand up here and defend him. But, you know, I'm actually not defending him so much as I'm defending his rights as a United States citizen. This is Nate Wessler. He's the head of the Directed Assassinations Project at the ACLU. And Mr. Wessler told me that, and this is coming from the ACLU now, that Barack Obama is judge, jury, and executioner. And let's see, according to the Fifth Amendment of the United States, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, nor shall they be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, the fate of these American citizens was decided not in the proper venue of a court of law before a jury of their peers as guaranteed by the Constitution, but in the dead of night by one man, Barack Hussein Obama. And with the stroke of his pen, he ordered these murders of these American citizens with no congressional oversight and no judicial review, just him and his conscience. Now, we were warned that this might happen almost 240 years ago by James Madison, who wrote that the accumulation of all power, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. So yes, as sad as it makes me to say it, the Republic fell on September 30th, 2011, and what we were left with, as Madison correctly observed, is the very definition of tyranny. Now, Barack Hussein Obama has unjustly assumed the powers of a dictator, using as his justification a series of executive orders and the National Defense Authorization Act, which authorizes the United States military to detain U.S. citizens without a charge, both abroad and here at home, hold them indefinitely without a trial or even a lawyer, and even send them to foreign countries where they would face almost certain torture. Now, these are American citizens we're talking about. These aren't Islamic terrorists caught on a battlefield somewhere. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, this guy's really full of it. Well, on that point, I would have to disagree. And to prove what I'm saying is true, I would point to the fact that Michigan has become the latest of dozens of states fighting this treasonous legislation. On December 5th, by a vote of 107 to 0, the Michigan House of Representatives passed Bill 5768, which states in part, no agency of this state, no political subdivision of this state, no employee of an agency of this state or a political subdivision of this state acting in his or her official capacity, and no member of the Michigan National Guard on official state duty shall aid an investigation of the armed forces of the United States in any investigation, prosecution, or detention of any person pursuant to Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act. Again, these are serious people tackling serious issues. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. Now, here's another fact for you. In subsection 502 of Executive Order 13603, which was signed into law on March 16, 2012, the President and those he designates have assumed the power to identify persons of outstanding experience and ability and employ them without compensation. Now, here's section 502 right here. You can see it. I don't care if you're a Republican, communist, Democrat, fascist. There's only one definition for forced uncompensated labor in the English language, and ladies and gentlemen, that definition is slavery. Now, do you see what I mean? Barack Hussein Obama has given us change, all right. We now live in a country where one man can order the death and detention of American citizens without a charge, enslave them, and even take their lives as he sees fit, with no one but himself for counsel. And it's not like it hasn't happened before. We did it to the Japanese in the 1940s. Never in the history of the world has a power been seized by a tyrant that he did not eventually use. In 1941, the most shameful executive action in the 20th century was the internment of Japanese Americans. And they were thought to be a risk to the state, but you know that they weren't. And today the federal government once again plans to round up U.S. citizens and put them into what they're calling re-education camps. Here's a recently leaked Army manual entitled FM 3-39.40, Internment and Resettlement Operations. It details how American citizens are to be rounded up and put into these re-education camps. It talks about how they're to be brainwashed using military-style psychological operations into compliance. Now, about now, despite all of the evidence that I'm presenting, a few of you are probably still thinking, okay, this has got to be a joke. Well, it's not a joke. This year alone, the Department of Homeland Security has bought 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that this is no joke. Hollow point ammunition like they bought is not used for training purposes. And it's being distributed to every government agency imaginable, including the Social Security Administration and the National Weather Service. I was unaware that weathermen needed to pack heat, but apparently the federal government is expecting civil unrest in this country, the likes of which have never been seen, and they're getting ready for it. So what's going to cause this unrest? Well, in short, war in the Middle East is going to spill over into the continental United States, and this war is going to make World War II look like a schoolyard spat. In the book of Ezekiel, this war is called the War of Gog and Magog, sort of a warm-up for the Battle of Armageddon. Now, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a prophet. In fact, I was dragged into this whole thing, kicking and screaming. I didn't want to get up in front of a camera every week and in front of you good people and look like a tinfoil hat wearing nut job. I don't want to be known around town as the lunatic that's raving about the end of the world. But I can't stay silent when all of this evidence points to one thing, the tribulation. Yes, the one that's described in the book of Revelation is upon us. Now, everything that I've said so far has happened or is happening right now. And that's the only reason that I'm up here right now. It's not a Sunday school sermon. This is news. People are going to die. And it's incumbent among all of us to save as many lives as we can. A lot of Christians think that the rapture is going to save them from the tribulation, but that's not necessarily true. There are valid cases for pre, mid, and post-tribulation rapture scenarios, even no rapture at all before the second coming of Christ. And I don't intend to stake the safety of my family on someone else's interpretation of Scripture. You just be a good Boy Scout, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. That's my take on it. But, like I said, I'm not a prophet and I can't see into the future. But like most prudent people, I would rather be prepared for any eventuality just in case. Now, these events are most definitely satanic in origin, and one of these facilitators is none other than Barack Obama himself. If you watch my last few shows, beginning with my analysis of the overthrow of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi, you'll see how Obama has given aid, comfort, training, money, arms, and even air support to al-Qaeda terrorists, led by men that he ordered released from CIA prisons in Indonesia just months before. Now, when you watch that episode, I'll give you the link before I leave, you'll even hear an official NATO spokesman tell me on the record that the reason that Obama gave for using NATO to intervene in Libya was a lie. Obama claimed that the immediate intervention was necessary because Gaddafi was about to use chemical weapons on his own people, but that NATO spokesman told me that NATO was not only aware that Gaddafi had no chemical weapons, but that they had helped him dispose of them as early as 2003. Now, the next week I documented how the terrorists that Obama unleashed on Libya stole 20,000 shoulder-fired anti-aircraft Stinger-type missiles. That is, in fact, why Ambassador Christopher Stevens was in Benghazi on September 11th of this year, the day that he was killed. He was meeting with the Turkish ambassador at a CIA outpost. It wasn't a consulate, it wasn't a mission, it wasn't an embassy, it was a CIA outpost to arrange delivery of those missiles to the al-Qaeda terrorists that Obama is now supplying in Syria. The only problem is that Ansar al-Sharia didn't want to give those weapons up. And that's just one of the many reasons for the attack on the Americans that killed 4 Americans. And believe me, there are other reasons. Unfortunately, I can't spill those beans just yet. Anyway, if you've been paying attention to the news, the Muslim Brotherhood has taken power in every country that's had a revolution during this so-called Arab Spring. In Libya, or Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and now Syria. Turkey already has an Islamist government. You know that the Iranians hate Israel. The Saudi Arabians aren't too friendly as well. So that's where that map comes in. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood is linked at the hip with al-Qaeda. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the number one man now in al-Qaeda, enlisted in the Muslim Brotherhood when he was just 14 years old. You cannot separate these two organizations. The Muslim Brotherhood is the political wing, al-Qaeda is the military wing. And Barack Obama is using every resource at his disposal to make sure that they are successful, to a point. Now, I'd just like to throw a couple of facts out here. Valerie Jarrett, President Obama's closest advisor in the White House, is a dual Iranian-American citizen of questionable loyalty. Hillary Clinton's personal aide, her body woman, as it were, was born Huma Abedin. Huma's mother is on the board of the Muslim Brotherhood, or Muslim Sisterhood, and she sits right next to Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi. Before Morsi was president of Egypt, he was the leader of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. Several weeks ago, before his declaration that he was the new dictator of Egypt, Morsi called for volunteers to march on Jerusalem and claim it as the capital of his Islamic Caliphate. Now, this is the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood and al-Qaeda, and under the direction of Barack Obama, the government of the United States is supporting them every step of the way. Obama's intent is to surround Israel with radical Islamist governments led by the Brotherhood. In fact, one of the very first things that he did as president was to present Hamas, an affiliate of the Muslim Brotherhood, with a gift of $900 million. Now, not only could we not afford it as the country was teetering on the brink of financial collapse at the time, but Hamas is listed as a terrorist organization by the United States State Department. Members of CARE were arrested and sent to jail for doing exactly what Barack Obama did. Now, thanks in large part to Barack Obama, Turkey, Lebanon, Egypt, Sudan, and Libya, every country listed in the book of Ezekiel, now have governments run by radical Islamists dedicated to the destruction of Israel. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is the only secular leader left in the Middle East, and his days are numbered. When it looks like he's going to fall, that's when Russia and Iran will be brought into the picture in a big way. The Russians, because their only warm water base is in the Syrian port of Tartus, and the Iranians because they are Assad's major patron and theological brethren. Now, here's something that can make sense only in a Muslim mind. Both sides in the Syrian civil war have stated publicly that if it looks like they're going to lose, they're going to attack Israel. It's my belief that when they do it, they'll be doing it with chemical weapons. But first, they're going to use these weapons on each other. In just the last couple of days, these videos have been leaking out of Syria, showing both government soldiers and Syrian civilians suffering from what appear to be the effects of chemical weapons. Barack Obama has said that the use of chemical weapons is the red line which will trigger U.S. intervention. So watch that to happen over the next few weeks. Now, you haven't seen any of this in the mainstream media. And as far as what reasons they want to give, I have no idea. But there is one of two possibilities here. Either these are legitimate chemical attacks, or they are propaganda efforts to make it look like the other side launched a chemical attack so that they can respond with chemical weapons. Or those are the only two possibilities. So either way, this is coming. There ain't no getting out of it. Now, once Assad falls and the al-Qaeda terrorists that Obama, NATO, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other nations of the Gulf Cooperation Council have been arming and supporting in this 2-year-old civil war gain control of the Syrian army's full arsenal, I believe that that's when they're going to attack Israel, just as Hamas did when they flung a few of the missiles from Libya into southern Israel not 2 weeks after Gaddafi was killed. Now, if you haven't believed anything that I've said so far, please believe this. When the Israelis say never again, they mean it. My sources inside Israel say that if they are attacked with chemical weapons from anywhere inside of Syria or Iran, the Israelis will attack Damascus with a nuclear weapon, one of up to 600 that they have at their disposal. This event is foretold in Isaiah 17, which states that overnight Damascus will be a smoking heap that will never again be inhabited. Damascus is currently the longest continuously inhabited city on the face of the earth. That event hasn't happened yet. It's still in the future. The Israelis are surrounded by enemies with tens of thousands of missiles, many of them tipped with chemical and nuclear weapons, and current Israeli military doctrine includes what they call the Samson option. They will attack any country that attacks them, and they're going to be using the Samson option to rain down nuclear fire on cities throughout the Middle East. Of course, the destruction of Damascus can't go unanswered. If the Israelis don't decide to kill two birds with one stone and conduct a simultaneous attack on Iranian nuclear facilities, Iran is going to retaliate with their Shahab-3 missiles almost immediately. The Iranian attack will be supported by Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, both organizations having recently been supplied with advanced weaponry. The Iranians have been transferring missiles to Hezbollah through Syria, and the Muslim Brotherhood has been supplying Hamas with the missiles that they stole from Gaddafi's armories through tunnels that are originating in Egypt. Between these two terrorist organizations, there are more than 60,000 missiles pointed at Israel right now. And when this war erupts, we're going to watch the entire Middle East burn as World War III unfolds live on Fox News. Now, as to how this is going to affect us and what we can do to save as many people as possible, well, that's now on to how this is going to affect us and how we can save as many people as possible. For the last 35 years, Iran has been governed by a radical Shia Islamist sect called Twelvers, where Christians pray and hope and wait patiently for the return of Jesus Christ. These fanatics think that they can actually cause enough bloodshed in the world and return or speed up the return of the Islamic Messiah known as the 12th Mahdi. Now, the Iranians have also released a state-sponsored video called "The Coming Is Upon Us," in which they're telling their people to prepare for the end of the world. Okay, the Iranian government's telling their people to prepare for it. They say they've got 6 months to get right with God. I mean, whether you agree with their theology or not, this is the official Iranian state position. Now, can you imagine if Barack Obama got on TV and told us that Jesus Christ was returning right now? And that we had to fight side by side with him to make sure that Christianity rules the world. Well, that's exactly what the Iranian leadership is doing. According to Shia theology, when he returns, Imam Mahdi is supposed to lead the armies of Muhammad to victory throughout the world. The United States military being the most awesome destructive force that the world has ever seen, but the Iranians have no fear of that. because of the vastly superior forces of the United States, because they believe that the Mahdi will supernaturally protect them from Israeli and U.S. nuclear missiles. Now, you have to remember also how Barack Obama has been sending clear signals to the Israelis that they no longer enjoy the patronage of the United States since he became president. Started with that $900 million gift to Israel's mortal enemy Hamas, and continued as Obama publicly insulted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on several occasions over the years, most recently when he blew off Netanyahu's state visit so that he could appear on David Letterman. Now, even though Obama has done everything that he can to kowtow to the Muslim world since he became president, including literally kowtowing to the Saudi king, the Iranians couldn't care less. Since the Twelvers overthrew the Shah in 1979, it's been their position that Israel is the little Satan and the United States is the big Satan. Both Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei have stated publicly that if Israel attacks them with or without support from the United States, they will retaliate against us. But how would the Iranians retaliate against the United States, which commands, as I said, the most fearsome military machine that has ever existed on the face of the earth? Well, obviously they can't stand toe-to-toe with us and slug it out. Even with the Mahdi's help, it's the Iranian plan to conduct a little asymmetrical warfare, cutting off the head of the snake, as it were, and they intend to do this with an electromagnetic pulse. Just before the election, I had a gentleman who goes by the pseudonym Reza Khalili as a guest on my show. Reza spent many years inside the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a spy for the CIA, and he's maintained his contacts inside the Iranian regime ever since he fled Iran for fear that he had been discovered. Now, he told me that the Iranians intend to attack the United States with warheads that they bought on the black market from a general in the former Soviet Republic of Tajikistan, in addition to super EMP weapons that were purchased from North Korea and warheads of their very own. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, Reza came out with a new article that states that they've received more nuclear weapons from North Korea. Now, Reza says that the Iranians will attack from 3 different vectors. The first being Shahab-3 missiles launched from container ships, laying off both coasts of the United States. The second from missiles launched from secret bases that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has built in Venezuela. The third is a coordinated assault on what's left of our infrastructure by Iranian agents that have already infiltrated this country through Mexico, through one of the most porous borders in the world. The thing that makes this kind of an attack a no-brainer for the Iranians is the fact that they don't actually have to hit anything with these EMP weapons. All they've got to do is get one about 250 miles above the continental United States before they detonate. Within milliseconds, every microchip within line of sight of that blast will be fried and the lights will go out forever. In the blink of an eye, the United States will be sent back to the 1800s without the infrastructure to support 311 million people. Now think for a second how important electricity is to this country. Without the computers that control everything from the pumps that send water to your faucets to the pumps that circulate the water that keeps the country's nuclear power plants from melting down, our civilization will come to an end. Every vehicle built after 1985 has computer chips that control its functions. So even if you could manually pump gasoline from the storage tanks at the gas station into your car is not going anywhere. And it won't be just personal vehicles that will be disabled. There won't be any more deliveries to grocery stores, no more medicine coming to the pharmacy, no more fresh water from your tap. Hundreds are going to die immediately when their pacemakers stop working. Many tens of thousands minutes later when the planes that they were flying in start hitting the ground because the computers that help fly them no longer work. There's no more than 3 days worth of food on the shelves of any fully stocked grocery store. So that what you have in your pantry when this attack comes is likely the last that you're ever going to see of mass-produced goods. 3 days is also how long it takes for people to begin dying from thirst. The major cities are going to be cholera-ridden death traps within a week, and the federal government is not going to help anyone. At this point, the feds are going to have one goal in mind, and that's continuity of government. After Hurricane Katrina, what did the federal government do? Well, the very first thing that they did was to confiscate the legally held firearms of the citizens of New Orleans. And then they forced those who had been trapped in the city to take shelter in the Superdome, which quickly filled with human waste and was the scene of innumerable rapes and murders, among the deaths of those who died from more natural causes like diabetes. Fresh water, food, and proper shelter were available just across the bridge in a neighboring parish, but the National Guard troops under FEMA control would not let the people cross that bridge. This was famously covered live by Geraldo Rivera and Shepard Fox on Fox News. Now, if they did it before, they can do it again. This was also one of the seminal events in the formation of the group known as Oath Keepers, because one of their 10 commandments, as it were, was that they will not follow any orders that turn American cities into large concentration camps. Now, one of the sources that I spoke with, skip the paragraph. Now, once people realize that they're going to die if they don't get out of these cities, it's going to be too late. There's going to be a mass exodus of people trying to leave these cities, and they're going to be turned back, just like as they were in New Orleans. Anyone who tries to leave these cities will be shot. It's my considered opinion that this is one reason why the federal government has recently purchased 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition. When people realize that they can't feed their children, there's going to be widespread civil unrest. When the government is prepared to kill anyone, or the government is prepared to kill anyone who does not comply with their demands, and anyone who refuses to be conscripted into forced labor is going to be sent to a FEMA camp and psychologically tortured until they change their minds. One of the sources that I spoke of earlier, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, was on the Congressional EMP Commission, and he tells me that within 1 year of this attack, anywhere from 2/3 to 90% of the population of the United States will be dead, mostly from starvation and disease, but many will also be killed at the hands of the federal government. Now, I don't believe that my brothers and sisters in the United States military were going to fire on American citizens, not most of them anyway. And that's why the government, the Obama administration, has been going all out, creating private armies with DoD contractors like XE and KBR, Halliburton, and so forth. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but the TSA's area of responsibility has been expanding far beyond airport terminals too, setting up checkpoints at bus stations and ferries, and conducting what they call Viper stops on highways, random stops where citizens are asked for their papers, a scene right out of Nazi Germany. So what can the county commission do to protect the citizens of this county? Well, for starters, you can adopt House Bill 5768 as the official position of this county. You can direct the sheriff and the county prosecutor to refuse to cooperate with any federal agency that seeks to detain a citizen of this county without a warrant that's been properly attested to before a judge. Now, this is of particular importance to me because other talk show hosts have already been arrested by the government on trumped-up charges. One was even sent to a mental institution before a judge decided that there was never any reason to detain the man in the first place. The arrests of these men are nothing but a form of intimidation designed to scare outspoken journalists such as myself into shutting up. Now, you can also direct the sheriff to form a mounted posse, a form of militia for the county. This is a form of defense. This is the form of defense that the founders had in mind when they crafted the Second Amendment. We must have a plan to seal the borders of the county and have an armed force to secure those borders. The health department should be instructed to stockpile medicines, especially insulin and antibiotics, wound dressings, and fuel to run generators. We need to identify those individuals who have the ability to manufacture medicines. Insulin, of course, is derived from the pancreas of either cows or pigs, and we need to find those people that live in this county who know how to make it. Now, there are a host of things that need to be done if we hope to save as many of our friends, neighbors, and family as possible. It's going to take a lot of work from a lot of dedicated individuals to plan for the survival of this county. Now, if I can use a football analogy, it's fourth down. I've snapped the ball. Now it's up to you good folks to run with it. I know that a lot of what I've said today is hard to believe, but every bit of information that I've presented is 100% factual. In addition to written reports that I'll give you guys, I'm going to send out each one of you an email of this presentation with links embedded within that will take you directly to my sources. Now, if you believe in the Bible, then you must accept that at some point Christ will return. So why not now? Most churches don't spend too much time on prophecy or the events leading up to the second coming because it's such a difficult subject to wrap your head around. Now, until I began researching this a few years ago, I had no idea how close the end of the days really were. Well, I'm standing here in front of you today to tell you that we are living in them. And if we're going to survive the hell on earth that is spoken of in the Bible until Christ returns, we must be prepared. That's all I've got. Thank you. Oh, that certainly was a long day. But it was also a productive one. I came away from the meeting with those officials pretty confident that they're going to take the positive steps that they're going to need to take to protect the people that elected them into office. Now, I'm going to continue to go around to other counties and giving them basically the same information, and to churches as well. You know, I honestly believe with all my heart, and by using the gift of critical thinking and discernment that God's given me, that we are in the beginning stages of the tribulation that's described in the book of Revelation. Now, as I told those officials, I'm not going to count on the rapture to save me or my family, and neither should you. You need to make preparations to feed and defend your family right now, not tomorrow or the next day, now. Now, got some important announcements here. Make sure that you subscribe to my blog at bobpowell.blogspot.com. I don't currently have any strikes at all against my account on YouTube, but there's been some hinky stuff going on there recently. Several of my shows have been disabled after having been enabled for monetization because they weren't advertiser friendly, or because I couldn't provide proof that I had the rights to everything in that video. Well, I know what I'm doing. If it's not covered under fair use, I get those rights, and I've provided that proof to them on several occasions, but I don't think there's anybody listening. I still have never spoken to a real live person at Google or YouTube. So make sure that you subscribe to the blog just in case, because I have a feeling that one day I might wake up and cruise to my channel and see this account has been terminated for one stupid reason or another. So yeah, make sure that you subscribe to the blog so that you'll always be able to know where I'm at. And click on those ads while you're there too. Every 10th of a cent helps in this fight to take freedom forward. Now, one last piece of news. Excuse me. It looks like a pro-Second Amendment rally is going to be taking place in state capitals all across the nation on February 8th. The promoters say that they hope to draw at least 1 million responsible gun owners to protest in support of the Second Amendment and our natural rights as a whole. The Michigan protest is set to take place in Lansing, and my 40 and I are going to be there. And we intend on exercising my Second Amendment right to open carry a firearm in public. Now, this is completely permissible under Michigan state law, as it is in most states, and all I intend to do is what the law allows. Now, I've put the link to the organizer's Facebook page in the video description below. I would encourage each and every one of you to make contact with the chapter in your state and plan to attend as well. Now, of course, make sure that you obey all federal, state, and local firearm laws. Don't want anybody getting into trouble. Now, finally, for those of you who have been kind enough to ask about my wife, I thank you for your prayers and your good thoughts. Her hair's almost gone, but her wig is going to get here sometime next week, and we're going to have a head shaving party. Now, I was thinking that maybe I should shave my head in support. It's kind of a moot point, isn't it? So, yeah. I'm going to say goodbye to the goatee for a while. Good news is it's going to take 10 years off my appearance. Bad news is I'm not going to look like Stone Cold Steve Austin anymore. We had a pretty good Christmas. All of our kids and grandkids came over to exchange presents, eat dinner, and play board games. But New Year's Eve was pretty much a bust because Dylan started her 3rd treatment that day. For the first time in over 20 years since we both worked in the same nightclub, I wanted to take her out for New Year's Eve. And a couple of my good friends that own a pub downtown held the best seats in the house open for us right down there in front of the band. And they made sure that me and my pajama-clad wife were nice and comfortable. But she lasted all of 5 minutes. Apparently the music and the crowd was just too much for her to handle. God bless her, she's a trooper. But we'll continue to fight this cancer as well. And we're going to be doing that with everything at our disposal. And yes, we're looking into alternative treatments as well. Many thanks to those of you that have helped by sending information that I had no idea existed. Now, finally, remember to subscribe to the Truth is Viral blog at www.bobpowell.blogspot.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, as always, God bless. Semper Fi. Hoorah.